Hello and welcome to Ethical Hacking and Penetration Testing. This is Chapter 9, Detection Evasion. So we'll be covering how to evade an IDS, obfuscation, fragmentation, encryption, and denial of service. So intrusion detection systems are becoming more and more widely deployed to supplement existing security provided by firewalls and IDSs. IDSs function in the digital world much the same way as a burglar alarm does in the physical world. Like all alarms, IDSs have weak points and flaws that can be exploited by an attacker to get around some system. Some people have even begun to pronounce the death of the IDS because of its failure to identify all attacks, frequent false positive alerts, and failure to provide a significant return on investment, because they are very expensive. Yet still, for all advances in security, all homes tend to have burglar alarms, therefore all servers should still probably have IDSs. I believe this will hold true in the digital world as well. No matter how secure the systems become, there'll always be people attempting to gain access that don't need to. For this reason IDS constantly needs to advance. When attackers try to evade an IDS, they determine the weaknesses in the design and attempt to exploit these weaknesses. Each type of IDS has different strengths and weaknesses. Network intrusion detection systems are typically designed as passive IDSs or IPSs for monitors of network traffic. This allows a single NIDS appliance to protect a great deal of systems as long as they are within the same network segment anyway. NIDs can detect attacks through one or two methods, either signature matching or abnormality detection. The signature matching method works very similarly to today's virus scanners. Each attack has a signature of how it's carried out. When that signature is witnessed on the network, on the NIDs, it generates some kind of alarm. With abnormality detection, network intrusion detection systems establish a baseline of the network traffic that's considered normal. It then alarms when the conditions are not normal. Abnormality detections are not as commonly deployed as signature-based because of the large amount of time needed to establish a baseline and their initial high rate of false positives. Evasion of abnormality detection IDSs is more a game of luck and skill because of the malicious traffic cannot exceed the abnormality threshold established for the network being monitored. Because of the limited installation base of abnormality IDSs, the rest of this section will probably reference against signature-based IDSs. As far as obfuscation goes, it's a process of manipulating data in such a way that IDS signatures won't match the packet that is passed, but the receiving data will still interpret it properly. For instance, sending a packet encoded with differently or adding extraneous null characters. An example is this string here at the top. That would not be interpreted by the IDS the same way as the second one. However, a web server would interpret both strings the same under the interpretation rules of HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. This particular example was very popular for a time, and so both NIDSs were web server vendors and are no longer fooled by the simple example. But the principle is still solid for any interpreter that allows alternate command forms. This particular method can also get both HIDs and NIDs if done correctly. HIDs are host intrusion detection systems. So here, when we have an example of fragmentation. Fragmentation is simply breaking an attack into multiple packets. Fragmentation of packets occurs normally, and the hosts are equipped to handle receiving data in multiple pieces and potentially in the wrong order. A quick example is depicted here. This example attack the packet data is broken into 4 different packets. The host at the receiving end will reassemble the fragmented packets and receive the data payload in the fragmented order, and then put all the packets together in the correct sequence using the unique packet sequence number assigned to each of these packets. But network intrusion detection systems are only going to see these parts. Each part isn't an attack packet, so the NIDs won't alert anybody. Some NIDs will reassemble packets to avoid fragmentation attacks, but not all NIDs have the processing overhead available to reassemble fragmented packets. But even if the NIDs that reassemble packets will have a physical limit as to how many it can or will reassemble. So an attacker can send a fragmented attack simultaneously and send a large amount of fragmented junk packets as well, just to try and confuse it. While the IDS is attempting to reassemble all the junk packets, the fragment attack may go through unnoticed by the IDS, or if the attacker doesn't have the resources to flood the NIDs, the attacker can also attempt to wait out the capture buffer on the NIDs. The NIDs will, as in the example here, get the first 3 packets but not the entire attack signature. And then the other ones won't be sent in the correct buffer time, so by the time it's processed these ones, try to reassemble them. It stores, no, can't reassemble it because I don't have the rest of the packets, send it through anyway. Then the attacker can continue to send the rest of the packets. Encryption. Everybody loves encryption. We all use it on a daily basis. We use it probably more than we know. A network intrusion detection system has to be able to examine the payload of every packet that crosses its path to be effective. It can be detrimental in multiple ways, the primary being encrypted network traffic. When SSL, SSH, and IPsec encrypted tunnels are established, they prevent intrusion detection systems from being able to interpret the packet's true payload. This allows an attacker to use a target's security against themselves. It can be particularly deadly when the system has the same root directory for both unencrypted and encrypted HTTPS websites. It's actually the default on most Microsoft IIS systems, by the way. So the scenario is that the attacker uses any attack against HTTPS websites, such as SQL injection, buffer overflow, and directory traversals that would work on the HTTP site. But because HTTPS uses SSL to secure the network connection, the traffic is encrypted and therefore flows past the network intrusion detection system without triggering an alert. Encryption can also prevent an attacker from being detected as they do other kind of unsavory things after they have compromised the host. The SSL VPN has 2 challenges for our network intrusion detection system. First challenge is that with SSL, a VPN can attack the network because the traffic is encrypted with the NIDs and it won't detect the attack. But even if they are detected, the chances that an individual being caught are very small with the rising popularity of free internet proxies. You can effectively do it any way you want, even from internet cafes, chances are they won't ask you to put in any personally identifiable information, so you can pretty much do what you want without being caught, within reason, of course. If they really wanted to catch you, they probably could. So the latest method to avoid NIDs is to simply overload it. It can be done in many ways. The first method is to flood the unit with attacks from spoofed IP addresses, creating so many alarms that the security personnel would have a bad chance of finding the actual attacker and they'd probably just turn it off. The method does depend on security professionals not pulling the plug in light of the event, but to avoid this, the attacker could use a common attack that the professional should be aware of when the system is patched against, so there's no actual perceived threat. The NIDs should differentiate between minor and major attacks as well, so that the situation is prevented. The second method is to flood the NIDs with traffic so that it can't possibly look at every single packet and simultaneously slip into the malicious packets and kind of inspect them instead of the spoofed packets. Most NIDs vendors have at least one device that they claim about 600 megabits per second of performance, but these high-speed solutions are very expensive. NIDs are able to process at these speeds would require an extremely large amount of coordination, compromised zombie hosts to flood these NIDs, therefore reducing the likelihood of ever being attacked by this method.